Welcome to our podcast, Conscious Convos, with your hosts, Eve and
Teagen.
Today we're going to be discussing a work of art from the book Teagen. It is untitled, but basically it's 2 white pages with black bold text. The first page says, "I do not always feel colored." And the second page says, "I feel most colored when thrown against a white background." The text is repeating over and over again from the top of the page to the very bottom of the page. And at the beginning, it's clear, bold text, but by the end of it, it's smudged and overlaid.
Yes, at the end of the page, it's illegible.
This work is on page 52 and 53 of the book Teagen, Part 2, and it's done by Teagen. The question Teagen and I are aiming to answer today through our analysis is why Teagen chose to smudge the words as the writing went on towards the end of the pages. So personally, I sort of felt like the repetition emulated sort of like a feeling of going crazy, like you can't get a thought out of your head. You're saying it over and over and over again, and you can't stop thinking about it. You can't figure it out. Maybe you're trying to convince yourself of it. And then the smudging at the end of the page, to me, really seemed like kind of divulging or descending almost into like psychosis or just sort of losing your mind.
Yeah.
Madness, exactly. I was reading the excerpts around this piece of art in the book, and there was one that really stood out to me when it came to what I thought about this art. And it says, "A friend tells you he has seen a photograph of you on the internet, and he wants to know why you look so scary. You and the photographer chose the photograph he refers to because you both decided it looked the most relaxed. Do you look angry? You wouldn't have said so. Obviously, this unsmiling image of you makes him uncomfortable, and he needs you to account for that. If you were smiling, what would that tell him about your composure in his imagination?" So to me, this ties into my thinking of why Glenn smudged the words towards the end of this, because it's sort of like capturing that rapid thought process, questions, and trying to understand something and being confused by something. This excerpt is obviously a white friend is telling a black friend that you look angry in a photo that you thought you looked relaxed in. And that's obviously a microaggression towards black people, which can send a black person into this train of thinking, like, why did he think that? I looked relaxed in that. Why would he say that?
I think that's a great point, and I also think that the repetition can speak to that by the idea of constantly having to explain yourself. And in a lot of cases where things wouldn't be thought about if you weren't a person of color, you would have never had to explain yourself in that moment, but now it's an entire spiral that your brain has to go through, and you probably have to explain the same concepts to people that don't understand you in your life, that don't share the same experiences, which is why it can become a frustrating process and become illegible towards the end of the art.
So you think that the illegibility towards the end of the piece of work is representing like a
frustration almost.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of when you are beginning to write a story on paper and you start when your handwriting is super eloquent, and then your hand starts to cramp up towards the end because you're getting passionate and you're getting frustrated. And I feel like that is a bit of the process that went through his mind when he was creating this art.
That is such a good point, especially because we're both journalism majors, and like obviously journalism school aside, we both journal a lot in our personal lives. Yes. And that's something that I can totally say too, is like if I'm ranting about a situation, and I take pride in my handwriting.
Me too.
But when I'm ranting about a situation, it starts out good, and then it just turns literally, basically illegible.
Like almost like toddler
yeah.
mindset,
like
writing.
Just
like,
learn
in the same
how to
way
write.
that you descend into madness sometimes when you're in the middle of a rant.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also I think that just creative self-expression in any way, including journaling or including the art that Glenn created, it's the tone. In the same way that you would speak in a different tone, the way that you write's in a different tone. If I'm writing a love letter, it might be in cursive. If I'm writing something I feel sad about, it might be in super small letters.
Right.
If I'm angry, if I'm frustrated, or if I feel like I'm not being understood, then it might be able to be translated in the art itself or in the handwriting itself.
Right. And like specifically just the smudging, and I almost wanted to say like
Passion.
splatter,
Yeah.
right? And the passion. Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that the colors used, making it super high contrast of black letters on a white background, and that being a direct display of what he's saying when he says, I feel the most colored when put up against a white stereotype, is a very interesting choice in art.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And then the second possible explanation for this artistic choice that we were considering was that, and it kind of ties into our first one, like these aren't super distinctive. We're really diving deep into the specifics here, but it was to show more repetition than could even fit on the page. Like he was trying to really nail down this point, this message, and I even think it's possible that he started out with just the idea to repeat it from top to bottom, and then he was like, that's not good enough. Yes. How do I display this point even more? Let me print it on top of each other so that it really drives home the message he's trying to send.
I think that's a great point, and I think that the style of art, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a printing press almost, but using like oil pastel paints.
Yeah.
And so he's literally stamping it onto the paper. And to imagine the process that he was going through could have been physical anger, physical passion hitting the page.
It would have had to be to get that effect. Yes. You're so right.
And that physical demand and the physical process, making it smudged and making it the thing that makes it not understandable, can be a testament to the Black experience in general, because sometimes when you are trying so hard to get your point across,
it gets lost in translation. Exactly. And also the passion that comes with it sometimes doesn't translate in and of itself, because people, and it could
be mistaken for anger.
Yes.
Passion can be mistaken for anger.
Absolutely, which
that's
also
how he
ties
talks about
in
feeling when he...
Oh, well, that's not him, but yes.
Yes, but it ties into the paragraph from the book.
Yes, it ties back into that paragraph of, like, feeling frustrated
feeling
and angry.
Even
but it's really just passion and trying to, get your point across.
Or people thinking you're angry when you're just passionate, and so people could look at that art and be like, wow, he must have been super angry in the creation process, but it's actually just repetition based off of wanting to be understood.
Yeah. I don't know. At the end of it, I don't know. Like, is there one explanation that you think is more likely for why he made that choice to smudge the words at the end?
I think it can be divulged in a bunch of different ways, but I think what's really important is looking at the words he's saying in addition to the style of art and contrasting the two in order to find a deeper purpose and to really try and understand his emotional mindset when he created the art. I think it helps you understand the point of view better. So I don't think that there's one right answer necessarily.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with analysis. The reason
that's
you're
the beauty
able...
of art.
Exactly, it's the beauty of art. And the reason you're able to analyze something is because there isn't a right answer.
And it's subjective. Once the art leaves the artist's hands, then the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You can kind of make it take what resonates and leave what doesn't.
Exactly.
I think that's the beauty of having different people from different backgrounds be creatives.
Exactly. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Conscious Convos with Eve and
Teagen.